My name is 𝙁𝘾𝙃𝙊𝙉. I'm 17 years old and recently completed my clinical trial for 𝙁𝙐𝙄𝙁. I'm preparing for college and plan to major in computational biology, but I'm also committed to patient advocacy and education within the achondroplasia community. Today, we're honored to be joined by Dr. Carlos Bacino, Professor of Molecular and Human Genetics at Baylor College of Medicine, Chief of Genetic Service at Texas Children's Hospital, and long-term leader in caring for individuals with genetic conditions. Dr. Bacino has dedicated his career to helping families understand complex genetic information and make informed medical decisions. This conversation is also hosted by Growing Stronger, the nonprofit founded by my parents, Munira Shamim and Amr Heather. Growing Stronger focuses on patient education, advocacy, and building community through initiatives like this A Conversation. Today, Dr. Bacino is going to tell us about navepegritide, a potential option for patients with achondroplasia, basing his presentation on a recent article he published in 𝘎𝘾𝙃 Pediatrics. If you have questions while Dr. Bacino is presenting, you should be able to put them in the questions section and we'll address them at the end of the meeting. And that should be everything. So without further ado, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming to this lecture. Well, it's really more a conversation, but it will be an introductory lecture first. And thank you to Growing Stronger and to Munira for inviting me to talk to you guys. So I will share my short presentation. I'll put this in presentation mode. So with probably I do this service small introduction. So I have been working in the field of clinical genetics for many years. I have done genetics now for about 35 years, and since early on, I have an interest in skeletal conditions, including achondroplasia. I have been able to also work in some of the clinical trials in achondroplasia. Started with 𝙁𝙐𝙁 or vosoritide, and also I had had the chance to be involved in this particular drug called navepegritide. So since this drug is probably going to be coming to the market relatively soon, I wanted to let you know a little bit about the background for this particular drug. So just as an introduction, probably I don't need to spend too much time with this audience to discuss achondroplasia. I just wanted to remind that achondroplasia is the most common form of short stature caused by skeletal problems with an incidence of 1 in 20,000. We now know what the gene causing achondroplasia is. It's something called the fibroblast growth factor receptor, and it happens to be a very unique change that happens most of the time, more than 97, 98% of the time, in individuals who have achondroplasia. So now we know, after a lot of studies that have been done, is that when the FGFR gene goes in overdrive, it causes inhibition of chondrocyte proliferation. And this is sort of a big word, but chondrocyte proliferation has to do with one of the first steps that allow the bone to grow. So essentially now, because of that, now we know that achondroplasia is a result of this mutation that causes a gain of function. In other words, that this genetic instruction now is working in overdrive. And that puts a break in this particular process, the chondrocyte proliferation. So treatment had been, as many of you know, has been focused on dealing with the complications and dealing with the symptoms in the achondroplasia. But fortunately, the things have started to change. This is a it's a young child that has achondroplasia, and in achondroplasia you can see a number of classical features with the head being slightly larger, uh, prominence of the forehead. There is some difference in the face in the mid part, many driven also by the shape of the forehead, short stature with short extremities, and also some other problems like difficulties extending the arms and the elbows, joint laxity, and there could be some issues related to the spine with some small humps in the back that typically are more temporary, and lumbar lordosis essentially is the lower part of the back sticking out. This is by no means something I will go in detail, but I just wanted to highlight this is a cartoon that shows the end part of the bone, looking at the growth plates and looking at the different elements who are going to be part on the formation of the bone. FGFR3 is shown here. FGFR3 is one of those instructions that allow the bone to grow or stop the growth. So imagine the bone is a very dynamic structure that has to, when development happens, the bone has to grow, but it cannot be growing all the time. So sometimes the growth has to decrease, other things need to happen, then grow again, etc., up until the skeleton is completely formed. The FGFR3, the instruction is essentially to put a brake on some of this growth. And the problem is that in achondroplasia, that brake is now put in overdrive. So there, the instruction is just telling the bone to stop growing. And that's what causes this particular condition. The many other instructions that they interact with FGFR3 and that are also key to allow the bone to grow. And that is not something that I want to discuss in detail. Essentially now, what we know is that if we can impact in the way the FGFR3 stops this growth, we are able to perhaps rescue some of the symptoms associated with achondroplasia. So for many years, treatments in achondroplasia had been limited to symptomatic management. Essentially, that means that whenever a patient has a symptom or a complication because of their disorder, then you either are going to do surgery, you can do some put orthotics, you can do things to improve the symptoms and also to avoid further complications. So we know that compression of the foramen magnum is something that is critical in achondroplasia. That happens very early on in life, but then you can have other problems with the spine as time goes by, and during growth, children may require extremity surgery when there is bowing, which is not uncommon. Obviously, some other more controversial therapies have come or become very popular, like limb lengthening procedures. So over the past few years, many things have happened. There is a group of drugs, the one I will talk to you about, which is the cartilage natriuretic peptide. We now have one of those drugs approved in the market, which is known as Voxzogo, named boceritide, and now we do have navepegritide, which is in the same family. Other drugs have come and gone. Some haven't done very well. There has been one that is called soluble FGFR3 receptor that didn't work. The tyrosine kinase inhibitors are also under investigation. Infigratinib is one of the drugs that is gone further in treatment trials, and some data appears to be coming out and showing some positive findings. And some more obscure drugs like the aptamers are still in process. So just obviously, I'm a medical doctor. I kind of like some of these facts, and one interesting thing that I always mention, that some of these drug findings come from like studies or observations that have been done by chance. This family of natriuretic peptides are well known by researchers or biologists, and we have three different types of natriuretic peptides. One is called the CMP, or cartilage natriuretic peptide, and these particular drug has been found to exert an interesting phenomena, which is essentially allow some of these cultures of mouse tibia to grow further when exposed to the CMP. And that's essentially one of the first things that got the attention of the researchers to start learning what happens with this particular CMP, and whether that is something that can be used for treatment in achondroplasia and another other type of conditions. So these particular drug or this group of drugs are here. You can see on the right hand side these CMP drugs, or drugs targeting these called natriuretic peptide receptor, and that includes Voxzogo, that you may familiar with, and then the TransCon CMP or Navepegritide. All of these drugs, what they do is they act on this receptor that essentially is going to now send a brake signal to the brake that causes the proliferation of the chondrocyte to slow down. So these is essentially one of the reasons why you see improvement in the bone growth when you use these drugs. So I told you that FGFR3 in overactive mode is putting a brake on the chondrocyte proliferation. These particular drugs, when given, activated different pathway that puts a brake on the brake. So then the brake from FGFR3 is released, and then you have a better or more appropriate growth. So now let me tell you, after this introduction, what is navepegritide. Navepegritide is a prodrug, so it's a CMP, inactive CMP, that is attached to a carrier that is proprietary to this company, and once in the body, it starts breaking down very slowly because of changes in chemical reactions and temperature, and the drug is being released very slowly. So it has a long active life, several days, of 5+ days, and therefore it has lingered in the body for several days, and eventually is cleared by the kidneys. So all of these drugs, as I mentioned to you before, they slow the activity of the FGFR free. So initially, Ascendis had a phase 2 study. The difference between phase 2 and other studies, and in phase 2, all patients received drugs. And this particular phase 2 trial uh, was to show whether this drug worked and what exactly was the dose needed to cause a difference. So there were four um, doses that were given to the children that participated in the study that had different amounts of navepegritide at 6, 20, 50, and 100 micrograms per kilogram. And this is something very common in pediatrics. You give a dose according to the weight. And in this study, they had initially 57 patients. There was a randomization 3 to 1. And they found that indeed these patients showed a consistent growth pretty much across the different groups on all ages. However, they saw that the dose at 100 micrograms per kilo were showing the best changes with regards to the growth and high improvements. So that led them to move on to a different study that was essentially extending now the number of patients that were receiving the dose that now is known to work. The dose is at 100 micrograms per kilogram per week. And essentially, there were 86 patients screened, 84 that were randomized, and a percentage now in a 2-to-1 randomization, 27 were given placebo, and then 57 were given navepegritide. So all of the patients that were receiving, in this case now a double blind, that received placebo were later on given navepegritide. So essentially, all of the families have received drugs. Some have received it slightly later than others. So what Amin was referring to before, it has to do with this article that was published um, back in November of 2025, showing these sort of like more details about what were the results of the use of navepegritide. So as I told you, were 84 patients, 52 were on drug and 27 on placebo, and there were some good improvements in height and other parameters that I can show you now in a minute. This is taken from the JAMA Pediatrics article. And here you can see on the left, labeled as A, annualized growth velocity at 52 weeks. So essentially, the blue bar is showing you an aggregate of the heights of the children that were on placebo. And then you can see the group that now has received navepegritide. So the HEV annualized growth velocity has improved significantly in those that have received navepegritide. And here I think that is probably better display. You can see in the middle graph, you see the placebo, and this is the change in the height C-score, and you can see the ones who have been on the placebo were essentially in the same height C-score, but the ones who received and navepegritide were clearly improved. And most likely what you will see once the children who were in placebo now are shown or are moved to navepegritide, they're going to show most likely a similar response. And this is an interesting way to display the information. So essentially here you are showing the growth of children with achondroplasia treated with navepegritide by using the CDC high-C score. The CDC high-C score is the score that we all use in pediatrics for children with average stature. So this what is essentially showing that the children who received navepegritide show a nice increase in the C-score that comparable to what you will see in average stature children. And this actually is something that we know that if you compare with average stature children in achondroplasia, you actually see a negative growth, but that's because of we expect this to be the case since children with achondroplasia and individuals with achondroplasia have an impairment in overall growth. So the sort of in a nutshell, the increase in the 𝙁𝙊𝙇 for those who were in the study were 1.49 centimeters per year. That's about of what they would have grown, compared to what they were expected to grow for achondroplasia. So the 1.49 or 1.5 centimeters, this in addition. However, this is for 2 to 11 years. We know that there is a difference between children under 5 and children over 5. When you look at the children or the children over 5, the growth is approximately 1.8 centimeters a year. So it's a slightly different figure. There were some interesting findings, and this is I know that this is, I apologize, this is a very busy slide, but there is a measurement that showed an interesting piece of data, which is the tibial femoral angle. The femur is the bigger bone that comes from the hip. The tibia is the other bigger bone in the lower part of the leg. There are two bones. The tibia is the biggest in the lower part. So essentially, we know that there is an issue in achondroplasia that is related to some mechanical changes in the bone that cause leg bowing. Leg bowing early on could be due to joint laxity, but later on in childhood can be caused by mechanical issues related to the bone growth. So what it was shown that the angle, this tibial femoral angle improved. So goes going in the negative number, which means improvement. If the number is positive, it's like the legs are going sort of outwards, so the knees are going outwards. If it's going in the negative range, that means that this is improving. So, and the interesting piece of information is that this drug was clearly showing some improvements in overall knee bowing. And that is the knee bowing is sort of like the expression of the limb alignment. If it's not well aligned, it will be positive, it will be sticking out. If it's correcting, it will go in negative or closer to the center. The other observation is that there was already some indication that the disproportion that sometimes we see in achondroplasia was already the treatment showed treatment with navepegritide decreased the upper to lower segment ratio at week 52, which essentially indicates a lengthening of the lower part of the body. So that is clinically or was statistically significant, and most likely is going to be more pronounced as we collect more data over time. People often ask, well, what about the side effects? One thing I should mention for all clinical trials, when a child is in a clinical trial and a child has a fall and has a fracture, that has to be reported. If he has a cold or a GI bag, that has to be reported. It doesn't necessarily mean that the particular problem that was reported is necessarily related to the drug. Obviously, all of that is later on analyzed, but essentially the things reported in terms of side effects were injection site reactions, although they were um, not very common, were only observed in 11 cases of subjects and in 11 cases over all of the patients over all of the injections. So only is 0.5% if you start looking at it as a whole. We know that natriuretic peptides cause some changes in blood pressure, so hypotension is something that we know is a possible concern. And it has documented in some patients that they did have some decrease on the blood pressure, but it was not symptomatic. So essentially, when the drug is given, then a number of measurements are done after that for the children in the hospital. So you see what happens in terms of blood pressure. So these decrease in the blood pressure has not shown to be clinically significant. And the ones that were serious adverse effects that happened in the treatment were assessed by the investigators and whether were related or not to the treatment, and they were deemed not to be related to the treatment. So they were more related to specific issues that are seen in achondroplasia, but not with the drug. So this is a summary, and I would like to give some time for answers to be asked, and I can explain a little bit more. CMPs are clearly useful in achondroplasia. We now have one drug in the market. Probably we're going to have a second one very soon. These are safe drugs, no significant toxicity or side effects, except for local reactions and transient blood pressure changes. I also showed you that the site reactions are not significant for navepegritide. These is a drug that now we know is a prodrug, so we can give it once a week because it has this sort of special formulation that allows the drug to be released over time, over several days, and so far has shown positive numbers in terms of growth, approximately 1.78 centimeters for older than 5 years, 1.5 centimeters overall from 2 to 11. And we have indications that the drug is also showing the improvements of the tibiofemoral angle and body disproportion, and there are no significant AEs that have been attributed to the drug. And I think I will stop, and maybe we can go over the questions from the
Yeah,
participants.
absolutely. So if we have a couple questions I only see one question in the Q&A so far. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to ask. I guess we can do, yeah, the one in the Q&A first. So if one is currently on Voxzogo over the last 2 years, how do we transition safely into the new drug and ensure its success?
Okay. So that's a question I get all the time. So um, is obviously the daily shot and the weekly shot obviously are very different. If a family is comfortable and happy and see results with the daily shot, I'm not going to recommend anyone to change to the other drug. I will say that if you really want to try, well, number one, we need to wait when the drug is approved by the FDA. We believe that it's going to happen in February, sometime in February. So now it's mid-February, so hopefully this is something we will know before the end of the month. Um, the drug was tried in children over 2 years of age. So definitely the indication will not allow the use in babies or children under two. But I don't know what the label will say. So I don't know. You never know what the FDA is going to ask the company. Someone is an older age or, let's say 5, 6, 7, and is on Voxzogo, and the family wants to change, that's doable. So obviously they will have to go to their physician. They will express that concern. They may say, well, I don't think that my child is growing as much. Maybe I need to try something else, things of that sort. So, but it's not ultimately a problem because as long as it's commercially approved and available for prescription.
Hmm. Okay. And so in terms of that transition, you don't, if it is doable, you do think it's practical if they are not finding success in Voxzogo, and by that metric that you're referring to by success is just pure growth height.
So it's doable. I mean, the CMP Vosoritide has a very low acting time, it's a low half-life compared uh, um, to navepegritide. So essentially, you cannot be given both, but you can switch from one to the next relatively seamlessly. So that should not be a problem. It's going to obviously take more time to get it approved now with a new drug and and going through all of the issues. I don't know what the cost will be, to be honest with you. I mean, so I don't know if the health providers or the insurance company are going to say, well, why are you changing? Is it really working? So there could be other possible barriers. Obviously, for families who start now in the treatment arena and now have to decide, that's going to be a different story.
Mhm. The question with relatively new medications, because they haven't been tested over long periods of time, obviously, because they just
Yeah.
came out, is downstream long-term effects, right? So obviously there's no one who's been on this drug for like decades now, but what is something people can expect for their kids or for themselves in 20, 30 years when they've stopped growing, but effects like lingering effects from the drug, or if any?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question, and the problem is no one can answer the question. I mean, I think that overall these drugs seems to have a good profile. Obviously, Voxzogo has the longest now use, even though it's been in the market for 2+ years. But there's all of the research now for 9, 10 years. So a lot of more information is available, and every single drug will have to go through the same process. So I think that navepegritide is again another CMP. It shouldn't be too different to what we know now about boceritide. But so far, and boceritide is also showing trends in reducing disproportion. Not sure about the tibiofemoral angle. So ultimately, it's all about what you're studying, what you're looking at, and how you're paying attention to some of these information. But
Mhm.
I think that overall these drugs are safe.
Yeah. Okay. Someone asked a question about combining growth hormone with navepegritide.
Yes. So growth hormone, there is a new study that Ascendis has done, and that is called Coach. And they just show some results. These are not publications, scientific or medical publications. Essentially, these are announcement that was done in their website and also to investors. Um, the data actually looks pretty interesting. Looks so essentially what the combination has proven is that the HEB for the first 52 weeks they showed at 26 and then continued to be the same at 52 weeks was about 40 or 50% over of the patients that were compared to the patients that were on navepegritide only. So it's interesting. Growth hormone in achondroplasia has been very controversial. Has tried at some point and hasn't really worked well in the trials that have been done. Interestingly enough, it is approved and is being commonly used in Japan. So it's the only country that now treats, or before Voxzogo, they would treat patients with achondroplasia with growth hormone. It's possible that there could be some synergy between the two drugs, and I think that that is what needs to be seen. The only comment that I usually make is that when you give growth hormone to children that do not have growth hormone deficiency, they will grow and they will have an accelerated growth, but that ultimately will plateau. It will kind of, sort of go down. Um, it will be interesting to see whether that's something that still happen also with CMP or that maybe changes the rules because now you're giving two growth promoting drugs. So the data looks interesting. So I wouldn't rule it out at this point, but it's gonna take a few more years.
Mm. And I just wanted to let you guys know it's not confirmed yet, but Growing Stronger is planning to have a webinar, a conversation where we discuss coach specifically, and hopefully we can get that to you guys soon. So stay tuned. But yeah, in terms of other questions,
Yeah,
right?
most of the studies, coach, have been done outside the US and Europe. There's going to be some clinical trials coming up, and there will be um, slots and families that can access these clinical trials in the US in somewhere in 2026. So it's not going to be long.
Hmm, yeah. What is the guidance you would provide to families who are on the fence about starting navepegritide or any medication?
So, well, I think one of the conversations that need to be had, I know that some people do not want to intervene because they find that their child is fine, and some don't think that it should be necessary because it's not causing any significant problem, and that people are putting a lot of a lot of weight on the height. So I think that, one of the things, and while we know that height is important, at least for me as a physician, I think that achondroplasia is about more things than just height. So uh, I think that a lot of things that happen in this condition happen also continue to happen in adulthood, and we often talk about just children, but the reality is that there are a lot of medical and medical needs in adults with achondroplasia. So for me, having a medication that may be um, uh, causing some improvement in the bone development may actually prevent or fence some of the problems that are pretty much expected to happen in all patients with achondroplasia. And then get a better quality of life, allow them to continue to be strong and active, not deal with surgeries in the future. So height, I know, is important because unfortunately, it's just it's a society as it is not really prepared for people with short stature. But the reality that to me goes beyond that. So
Mhm.
also, I wanted to say something about expectations. I know that families go to the studies and they don't see the growth that they would have expected. These are not miracle drugs. These are good medications that take some time to work. And I also I have seen some patients that take a little bit longer to grow. So I would say that it's like they're late responders, but ultimately everybody benefits from this drug, from what I have seen in my opinion so far. So the one of also the other things that I explained, that less than 4 or 5 years of age, the growth is different. So they should not expect a tremendous growth early on. So I think that ultimately providers need to explain to the families what they can get, and be honest about, trying to them understand what is important and not, in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm. Someone had a question about, yeah, do you have experience about, oh, well, I don't know if you do, but that insurance question, I feel like is you might not have the answer to it. Or do you know how insurance? Probably not, right?
Let me see. I don't see. Well, I cannot see any of the questions. What
Oh yeah,
was
so the question is, do you have any an expectation of how insurance carriers will manage this if it's prescribed? I feel like that will specify given the person, their specific circumstances and specific insurance, right?
so? Yeah, I mean, it's going. The in the U.S. Any drug that is approved by the FDA, by most part, is approved by health insurance. Um, are they going to make it easy? Probably not. That's not something that happens. There's always push. Well, this drug may be not proven, doesn't have a track record, is experimental, etc., etc. I have no idea what the cost is going to be. Now I can see the Q&A um, areas. So I don't know what the prices are. I know that these are not inexpensive drugs. I know that Voxzogo is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know how they will fare in terms of cost. I think that the health insurance company will approve this. Um, and it just may take a little bit of back and forth, but ultimately that should not be an issue. I think that the problem is for those who don't have adequate insurance, and that and that obviously is a problem. We do have a lot of patients who are on public insurance, at least where I work in Texas, and these drugs are covered by state federal insurance. So that is usually okay. We are in a good shape compared to many other countries in the world where this drug is not, or this group of drugs are not approved.
Well, we've talked about how to transition from the only current available option right now, Voxzogo, to navepegritide. But how would you, someone also asked about a direct comparison in your eyes between them, in terms of, I believe, results that they can expect. Can you give us a just direct
I don't want
comparison?
to go in favor of one or the other. I think that they're very fairly similar,
Hmm.
uh, just to be safe, because at some point you have one study that has more data and shows slightly more AGB and than the other, and then you start comparing like millimeters with like well, it's 1.56 or it's 1.67. So I think that you need to be cautious to get tangled into sort of like the small details. I think that both drugs are fairly similar.
Yeah. Okay, well, as we come to an end, my final question is, if no one has anything else, would be what is the most important takeaway from today and our recent data that you want families who are thinking about navepegritide or maybe just started to take away about the drug?
Say that again. I mean, sorry, I
No,
was
no,
looking at
the
the
most important
Q&A.
takeaway from today and the most recent data that you would like families who are considering navepegritide or already just started navepegritide to take away.
So I think that for some people who either maybe maybe more favorable to a weekly drug and consider navepegritide, I will say that this is a good drug and it's a safe drug, and it's working. And this is something that I have seen with some of the families, because I have been part of the clinical trial, being part of the manuscript. So what you see in the publication is correct. Um, so you know, but as you alluded, now comes the growth hormone, and also today you have infigratinib that released some information about uh, uh, their their data as well from the phase 3 trial. So everybody will start asking, well, what about an oral drug? So I think that things are complicated. They're sometimes complicated for us to explain the nuances. And once all of these drugs are in the market, um, it may become challenging. What I always tell the family is that competition is good. Competition ultimately helps them. There was nothing available 10 years ago, and now you have all of these companies that are there now in competition to bring the best possible drugs. So uh, time will tell, and I know that it's going to be it may be difficult to navigate. Obviously, now the only commercial available drug is vosoritide, and soon it's going to be navepegritide. So the choices commercially they're still going to be limited, but it may be more difficult to decide in 5 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, and Dr. Bacino, unless there's anything else you'd like to share with us, I think this is a good place to call it
No,
for the
thank
day.
you. I think that for me, it's important that now we have good, interesting medications and good options we can offer to the families. I think that again, I discussed expectations because expectations is a big issue. Some people think that in 2 months they will have like a big change in growth, and that that's something that it takes time. But the reality that in the same way that these drugs can add a few inches to the height, is becoming clear that they do more than just that. I think that a quick way to see what these drugs do are looking at the height. But the reality is that we still lack a lot of data for the older patients about the spine, about changes that I'm pretty sure there are positive as well. So the bulk of the information will take many years to come. But I think that overall this is very positive overall and very beneficial to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to thank everyone else for coming. I wanted to thank you, Dr. Bacino, for giving us your time and your very busy schedule to come and speak with us all. Everyone can find this recording on Growing Stronger socials, our Facebook and Instagram. Our Instagram and Facebook are um, Instagram is Growing Stronger org. Facebook is We Are Growing Stronger. You'll be able to find this recording and other information about future webinars and basically opportunities and options for everybody interested in achondroplasia. Thanks again for coming. And this was a great opportunity and a very productive webinar.
Thank you. I mean, you guys take care. Bye.